104.5, the team, your home for New York sports. Of course, great 30 for 30 coming out tonight on ESPN, 9 o'clock, One and Not Done. Joining us now is the director of the film, Jonathan Hock. Jonathan, first, we had all this stuff prepared, but as I'm walking into the room to talk to you, I look at my phone and I've got the Vegas odds pop up. Guess who's the favorite to win the NCAA basketball tournament next year?
Say it ain't so. Not John Calipari in Kentucky.
Yeah, those evil people who do the one and dones. They're the favorites again.
That's the most amazing thing about it is how every year he's got a whole new group, and somehow he gets them playing well enough to at least be in the conversation. And look, they're great players, but they're basically high school players when he's got them. Within 4 months of practice, he's got to get them ready to beat the world, and it is. He makes life hard on himself that way, but he's picked his path.
What made you interested in the topic of Kentucky basketball and one and done to make a film about it?
Yeah, it was more about Calipari than Kentucky per se. We had begun an all-access show with the Kentucky basketball program about 5 years ago. We started filming, and Cal is so charismatic. He's so entertaining. He's really funny when he's trying to be funny. He's funny when he's not trying to be funny. He's intense. He screams all the time at the kids. It's really entertaining stuff. And we were going to have a really good show. And he said to me, took me aside one day. He said, they're not going to let us do this. They're going to shut us down. So why are they going to shut us down? He said they're going to say it's unfair for Kentucky or Calipari to have this recruiting advantage. Cal, there are 90 shows that do exactly the same thing. He said, just you wait. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, NCAA called, shut the show down.
Wow.
Unfair recruiting advantage for Kentucky. And the other 89 shows that are on the air, they get to keep doing it, but you guys have to stop. And Cal and I stayed in touch, not all the time, but, occasionally. And we were trying to think of a new way to do a 30 for 30, realizing we hadn't really done one about someone who's still at the peak of his powers, someone who's active. And I said, well, how about Cal? Here's a guy that, half the country loves him, half the country hates him. Maybe not exactly half and half. Maybe three-quarters hate him. But he is fascinating. And the more we spent time with him in the present tense, and the more we went back into his history, and what he did at UMass, right up 90 from you guys, it was incredible, the career that he's had, and it's just fascinating and entertaining, and for me it was really an amazing year and a half working on the film.
Jonathan Hock with us right now. You can follow him on Twitter at Hock Films. He's the director of the 30 for 30 debuting tonight, One and Not Done. It's 104.5 the team. So, Jonathan, has Calipari seen the film, and has he reacted to it in any way?
Yeah, it's really interesting. He comes across as so arrogant and so full of bluster and everything, but he's really very insecure, and he's very sensitive. Maybe is a better word than insecure, and he really wants people to like him. He was afraid to watch the film because he was worried about how he was going to come across. And then ESPN held a big premiere screening or preview screening in Lexington, Kentucky, a big, beautiful old theater. They have there 800 people in the audience, and Cal went and he watched the film, and he went up to speak afterwards, and he was like shaken. He was visibly uncomfortable, and he said, well, that was an extremely uncomfortable experience for me, but thanks anyway. So I think it's going to take some time for him to digest, because it means so much to him what people think about him, and here's a film that showcases the good and the bad together.
How much of that is a reflection of himself that maybe he wasn't aware of, and how much of that is maybe just the one-and-done overall theme, that he's really the one that's become the face of one-and-done, and some still wonder if it's good for college basketball?
I think he's happy to carry the mantle for one-and-done, because Cal is very much a realist. He's not a romantic about college sports. It's not James Naismith and a peach basket anymore, guys. This is about making money. And And the only people not allowed to make money are the kids playing. And if they're good enough, and we can do right by them and get them as good as they can be as quickly as possible, then why do they have to stay in college? They're ready to go out and make millions. And, you know, most of them are poor, like I was. I mean, that's the thing. Cal grew up in a family that was, I guess, the working poor would be the term we'd use today for him. You know, his dad fueled airplanes at the Pittsburgh airport. His mom scooped ice cream at the high school cafeteria. And he relates to these kids and their families. And he's lived the dream. He gets paid a lot of money. And he's not shy about that. And it means a lot to him to have a lot of money. And he knows that it'll mean a lot to these families to have a lot of money, too. And that if we want to pretend that that's not what it's about at that level, well, he's not having it.
Jonathan Hock with us right now. He's got the 30 for 30 film debuting tonight, 9 o'clock on ESPN. One and Not Done. So, obviously, you know, if you can shake Calipari, you got yourself a great film. Is there something that you wish you could have kept in it but it ended up on the cutting room floor?
Oh, boy, good question. I think Carl Anthony Towns is such an amazing interview, and he gave us such an amazing interview, and he talked a lot about the 2015 Final Four when they were undefeated, 38-0, and lost, and that was fascinating stuff, and we ended up having to take the whole thing out because we just had to get it down to time for television, and it seemed that the older stuff was more stuff people didn't know, and the story of something that just happened a couple of years ago was not as important to understand who Calipari is, but boy, I loved that stuff.
What do you hope tonight that viewers take away from the film, the big message and the big theme of tonight's 30 for 30?
You know, I think the beauty of the 30 for 30 is that it gives you the time. It's not a 30-second hot take of Cal stinks or Cal's great. This is a human being who's complicated, and he's got a lot of really great qualities. I mean, he does. And he's got some qualities that are less pleasing, and he does. And he's both of those. They're both true. You know, the haters have a good point, and the people who love him have a good point too. And I think that if a viewer can watch this and, you know, you may not be ready to go to war for Cal, you may not be ready to go to war against Cal, but you're going to understand that he's a human being who's complicated, and he represents a lot of the contradictions that are inherent in big-time college sports, which is a very complicated enterprise. I think it's a bit of a mirror for people, Cal's story. It makes you look at what matters to you about college sports, and that's what I want people to take away from it.
Jonathan Hock, his film One and Not Done, the 30 for 30, coming out tonight on ESPN at 9 o'clock. Follow him at Hock Films on Twitter. We appreciate your time and looking forward. I mean, you know, truth be told, Goz and I have watched it, but I'm kind of looking forward to watch. Like, I've watched it on my computer. Like, I want to watch it in the living room with a bowl of popcorn, the whole nine.
Yeah, good. Enjoy it. It's, you know, we tried to make it feel big and sound good. You know, we shot a lot of great stuff in games with him that people have never seen or heard a coach going at it like this before. So that's the best way to watch it. Turn it up.